Our top story, House Democrats reached an agreement with the Trump administration on a trade deal with Mexico and Canada. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi touted the deal this morning.
This is a day we've all been working to and working for on the path to yes. It's a victory for America's workers. It's one that we take great pride in advancing.
And President Trump tweeted, quote, America's great USMCA trade bill is looking good. It will be the best and most important trade deal ever made by the USA. Joining us right now to talk about all of this is Bowen Haynes and Company co-CEO and President Jay Bowen, and Yahoo Finance's Rick Newman, still with us. Also joining us is Frax co-founder and Chief Economic Officer Stephen Moore. Stephen, let me start with you. I remember having coffee with you, about 3 years ago, right, as the Trump administration was coming into power, and all of this, the USMCA, the NAFTA new negotiation was coming down the pike. You had access to the people in the administration who were telling you things. What kind of access do you still have? Because I think we all see this as a plus, but going forward, what happens next? And that access, what are you hearing from inside?
Well, I talk to the president frequently, and I just was in the Oval Office with them a few weeks ago. It's a great economic team. Look, I don't know all the details yet of this deal. We're all still trying to figure out what's in the fine print. But this is a big victory for Trump politically. Let's just look at the politics. I mean, this is I think it'll be one of his signature achievements for his first term, along with the tax cut and some of the deregulation. It's interesting that Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, I think, felt compelled politically to get this done. I think it achieved a goal for them as well, because they were being portrayed as simply people who want to impeach and intrude and investigate rather than get legislation done. But ultimately, this is a big win for the United States of America. This is a great trade deal.
Why is it so much greater than NAFTA? Besides, we were talking earlier about optics and, effectively it's rebranding, right? But is there anything substantively in this deal that is really that significantly different?
It's an improvement, I believe. I think that it's an improvement and it's a modernization. And by the way, I worked on NAFTA back in, 93, 94, around there when it passed. It's interesting, the legacy of this. It was Reagan's vision. It was signed into law by a Democrat, Bill Clinton. And now we have, the new updated, modernized version. I think a lot of the patent protections for American products, some of the improvements in labor protections are positive for American workers. And so, yes, your question, it does kind of preserve the whole legacy of making North American continent a free trade, tariff-free zone.
I'm curious, when you look at this trade deal, what's coming down the pike, do you see American business actually being able to go forward and grow based on what we're witnessing? Or are we still going to see perhaps relocation of jobs south of the border to Mexico?
What strikes me, I really think this is kind of the model for future trade deals. I think these large multilateral WTO type deals I think that's yesterday, that's 20th century. I think the bilateral, of course this is trilateral, I think that's where we're headed. We saw it with South Korea, we saw it with Japan, we're seeing it with China, hopefully that's, a work
maybe the UK.
In progress. Got the UK. Yeah. So I just think the current administration, they've changed the entire dialogue on trade. And I think business is going to start becoming much more comfortable with, because they're much more manageable, the bilateral type agreements, as opposed to these large multilateral situations that actually they can kind of careen out of control in terms of even knowing what's in them.
Well, one area where we're not seeing any bilateral agreement is with China, obviously. So, Stephen, you talked to President Trump, as you pointed out. How do you think he resolves this in time for the 2020 election?
Yeah, well, first of all, what's so interesting is that everybody, has been so focused on China. And the markets, as you guys know, the markets just move with every new detail of the China trade. But what's not well known, I think even by a lot of the viewers here, is that we do more trade with Canada and Mexico than we do China. So Canada and Mexico are our most important trading partners. Now, that's not to say that China isn't important. They sure are. I'm going to put my money on the fact that they are going to get a trade deal, what you call a deal or a truce, something done in the next month or so. Trump needs it.
And you think that's with the existing tariffs in place or with some rollback?
That's
of those
a good
tariffs?
question. Those details have not been worked out. What is it, December when's the date?
15th, Sunday.
So the 15th.
The new one's
So, that's the issue for China. Look, what hasn't been covered much by the media, in my opinion, is that these tariffs have really hurt the Chinese economy. They need a deal. Trump needs a deal, so I think it's going to happen.
One thing, you just said you talk to the president on a regular basis. Turning the attention for tomorrow, we're going to get the Fed statement.
Yeah.
You had been in play, but aren't
right.
anymore. We have 2 vacancies. What's going on the Board of Governors?
Yeah, what is going on?
What's he going to do next? And
well, Jay and I were just talking about this in the green room. I mean, it's been, over, a year for those vacancies. And Judy Shelton has been, 8 months or something like that. Why is it taking so long to get these people confirmed? I think it's a big problem in terms of getting good people who wants to be put through the ringer. This should be done much more expeditiously and speedily. I do think.
But they haven't been formally even nominated yet, have they? The 2 nominees that have been talked about.
Well, I believe Judy has.
I didn't think it had gone through the formal process yet. I thought it was still an intention
that would be a
to nominate.
surprise to me because that he named her back in April or May. So if that's the case, I don't know why. But you make a good point. Those vacancies should be filled.
But is this a situation like we're seeing with the WTO, where perhaps there is an intention to hamstring the Fed in some way by not, on the part of the administration?
No, I don't think so. Because why? I mean, he wants Judy Shelton thinks like Trump does, and he wants to put his own footprint and fingerprint on the Fed, and I think he wants his own people. I mean, look, every meeting I have with Donald Trump, I mean, he spends half the meeting railing against Chairman Powell. But
he's doing what he wants him to do. This is what I don't understand. Trump's always criticizing the Fed. The Fed has been cutting rates. The Fed has been adding liquidity.
Yeah.
So what's the big issue? And why can't we have an independent central bank? By the way, Donald Trump was also complaining about the Fed before he became president when they were adding liquidity. So, come on, make up your mind.
I think the issue is that the Fed was just flat out too tight in 2018. I mean, those 4 rate increases, if you looked at the forward-looking auction markets, what they were saying, they were screaming that the Fed was too tight.
Yes.
Nominal growth expectations collapsed. Inflationary expectations collapsed. Now, to his credit, that was a major pivot back in August. And if you looked at his speeches last October of 2018, we're a long way from neutral. December of 2018, automatic pilot on the balance sheet. Okay, that all flipped in 2019. He's taken 3 of the 4 back. If they cut in January, which I think they should, that'll be 4 out of the 4. So I think it's a matter of the forward-looking indicators were really, really screaming that they were too tight. But I will have to say, Powell, if you look at his speeches, he's very focused on the 90s. I think he wants to take a page out of the 90s playbook where we had strong non-inflationary growth and a burst of productivity. That was a golden era for stock investors. Powell, I've seen more than one speech where he's really focused on that era. So I don't think Powell believes in the Phillips curve like some of these other Fed members do, to his credit.
But it certainly is, most of them do. And look, I have to say this. Trump was railing against the Fed last year. I mean, railing. They made 2 major mistakes in September and December. By the way, the December rate increase was just about a year ago. I think it was December 18th. It was a catastrophically bad decision. And in fact, while the Fed was making its announcement, in the 35 minutes he made remember that? The stock market fell by 600 points. And my point is, the Fed is, number one, in a lot better place today than it was a year ago. And number 2, I'm a big believer presidents get the monetary policy that they want. And this is what Trump has wanted. And I think in the end, he was right. You're right, Jay. The Fed was way too tight last year, and we needed more dollar liquidity in the market. Okay. And we have, now we've got the lowest inflation and the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years.
Got to cut it there. Just for the record, Judy Shelton, the president wants her, but has not he's not put the name up yet because there's opposition from Republicans in the Senate Banking Committee. Stephen Moore, always good to see you, Frax co-founder. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.